Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Phoenix and this is the Consumer's Guide to Filmmaking. Blonde, 2022, Andrew Dominik. This film follows the life of a woman named Norma Jean, otherwise known as Marilyn Monroe. Starting with her childhood, we see Norma grow up into the star we knew her as. We experience her highs as well as the tragic and abusive lows that ultimately led to her untimely death. Oh boy, man, this film was, something. There's a lot to unpack with this film, so I'm just gonna get right into it. On a technical level, I feel this is Andrew Dominik's most inspired work. He goes all the fuck out with this film. There's aspect ratio changes, multiple ones in one scene. Going from color to black and white, multiple changes within one scene. There's surreal ass imagery. It's just everything under the sun is in this film. The sex scene with Charlie Chaplin and Edward G. Robinson Jr. was just wild, with this warped and frayed image flowing across the screen, and then it ends with them fucking on a waterfall, which then transitions into a trailer for one of Marilyn Monroe's movies. God damn. It's insane. But the thing with this is that I feel this super stylish presentation was really inconsistent. Not in terms of quality, because it looked fucking cool, but in terms of thematic purpose. A good chunk of the choices I understood or could glean something from. But I found some of the aspect ratios and transitions to and from black and white were really random feeling. It could make sense at a couple moments, but most of the time it felt like the change was jarring and never amounted to anything meaningful. The music in this film, though, was on fucking point. With Dominik's usual suspects, Nick Cave and Warren Ellis doing the score in this film is incredibly ethereal and enveloping. The synths and strings rising with all the intense melodrama to evoke really strong emotions. It complements the surreal nature of it all. And the use of Marilyn songs from her movies worked for the film as well. I got to hear all the bangers that people much older than me would recognize more swiftly than me. Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. That's a cute song. They were all performed well. The set design and the costumes were pretty on point as well. Ana de Armas was a dead ringer for Marilyn. They did the hair and the costumes just perfectly for her. Maybe some aging near the end would have helped because life didn't do that one favors. But that really didn't bother me ultimately. Arthur Miller, as played by Adrien Brody, he looked good. The hair was on point. While I think Bobby Cannavale was a tad too clean cut as Joe DiMaggio, it worked for what it was. The locations all looked really authentic as well. It really fit the time period. And apparently Dominik shot Marilyn's death scene in the house Marilyn Monroe died in, which is a choice. Oh, especially for this film. I gotta respect the commitment, though. The cast did a great job with the material, and they all gave solid performances. The standout, of course, being Ana de Armas. Like, bless her. Bless her for trying her best. Because the emotions she was able to communicate were powerful and riveting. The only problem is that this woman couldn't maintain the Marilyn voice for long. She often slipped back into a Spanish, Latina, I think she's Chilean, I believe, accent. And it was noticeable if you were listening intently for it. Otherwise, A+ effort. She did a decent job. Bobby Cannavale was good as Joe DiMaggio. Always like seeing him in things. Adrien Brody absolutely crushed it as Arthur Miller. Man always goes deep into his roles, and he looked and sounded the part really well. On to the script though, which has been a divisive and controversial topic since this movie came out. Now, while this film does handle generalities in a, shall we say, realistic enough manner, it also spreads a lot of lies about Marilyn Monroe. Firstly, she was never abused by her mom, Gladys. While Gladys did suffer from mental illness and Marilyn was left an orphan, Gladys never drowned her in a tub. And for romantic relationships, yes, the marriage between her and Joe DiMaggio broke down to the mounting jealousness. But from what I've gathered, he never beat her. After the marriage, I think they maintained a close relationship, and DiMaggio even oversaw her funeral. Which leads into Arthur Miller, who despite being depicted as, sweet and nice in this, was actually quite exploitative of her. He kind of looked down on her. He just sort of stood by while she got hooked on drugs. He was kind of a dick to her. But things like drugs, mental illness, and the use and abuse by Hollywood elites were captured in this film as well as they could have been. Fervor, her bone in JFK was handled about as well as it could have been. I don't think he sexually assaulted her, but, People dispute the whole JFK thing, but come on, there's evidence. It's kind of an open secret. However, her battles with child rearing, as depicted in this film, were handled poorly, so to say. Apparently Marilyn Monroe had abortions, which is not true at all. Marilyn Monroe had miscarriages due to illness, which in and of itself is harrowing and heartbreaking. But to just completely make shit up, to more or less go on a pro-life screed at the expense of a dead woman's image, was kinda sketchy. Overall, the portrayal of Marilyn Monroe was lopsided and at times incredibly ghoulish. Blonde is a film that has tons of potential. You can easily make a fever dream odyssey about Marilyn Monroe because her actual life was quite wild. Dominic's direction can be a little fluffy in this, and it needs to be pared down a tad, but the makings for a masterpiece are here. But there's just so much nonsense put in this script that I can't fully give this a pass. Good performances aside, inspired direction aside, Blonde is possibly Andrew Dominic's first real mishap as a filmmaker. But because of his talent, I think he can recover from this. If you're looking for more resources on Marilyn Monroe, she did write an autobiography in the late 50s. Fervor, while it's quite mid, there's a documentary on Netflix about Marilyn Monroe that handles the subject a little better than this. Yeah. Anyways, I am feeling a 4.5 to a 5 out of 10 on this one. It's kind of closer to a 5 than a 4.5, mostly because of Dominic's direction. Yeah. Catch you later, guys.